Hi, Daniel Breton here from Montreal Auto Pre Hybrid and Electric Division. Tonight we're going to talk about fast charging. There are many things that have been said about fast charging, some of them pretty wrong. So tonight we're going to have Frédéric Prigue from l'Institut du véhicule innovant who's going to come and explain to us all about fast charging. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So could you explain to people so that they can understand what it means to do fast charging on an electric vehicle?
Well, what happens in a battery when you charge it, a lithium-ion battery, you're taking those ions and you're trying to push them in the anode, inside the anode. And it slowly diffuses in the anode and starts saturating it. If you're trying to do it very, very fast, at some point those ions cannot go in the anode. They will actually plate on top of the anode. You will have lost lithium. It will never dilute back in the electrolyte.
And you lose capacity.
Absolutely. That's if it's unmanaged, if you do it without any protection. In a car, obviously, manufacturers have put a lot of electronics in the battery. The battery management system is constantly asking the charger for a certain current that it knows is safe for the current state of the battery.
So basically, the charger is asking permission to the battery management system. How much can I push in?
It's even worse than that. The charger is dumb. The charger is a slave of the car. It only does what the car is asking.
So, so now that we know that, are you saying that when you have an electric car and you plug it onto a fast charger, we're talking about 50 kilowatts for now,
Yep.
okay? It means that when people say you should charge up to 80%, is that an urban legend? Or is that true? Or what do the manufacturers say about that?
Well, it's a general recommendation. That is somewhat true, but not in terms of harming the battery.
Okay.
I went through the different manuals of the manufacturers. For the Hyundai Kia group, they state in their manual that you can charge up to 94%, no problem on fast charge. Of course, it's going to be slower. GM in the Bolt user manual says nothing. Just use the DC fast charger and everything will be fine.
Even if it's 100% fast charging?
Yeah, it won't be fast at the end. That's
No, but I mean fast charging 100% of the time.
Absolutely. There's no mention of doing anything else. In the Volkswagen e-Golf manual, though, it says use fast charger on not all the time. Alternate between AC and DC charging. Don't fast charge all the time. You will shorten the life of the battery. Without any numbers, it's just a general recommendation.
And what about the Nissan Leaf, which has no thermal regulation?
Strangely enough, no thermal regulation, but the electronics knows how its battery is behaving and limits the rate of charge. That's why we think that Leafs are slow chargers. It's going to limit the rate of charge to never harm the battery. So even in a Leaf, without any thermal regulation, you should not shorten the battery life by fast charging.
And you have a good example of that. Could you tell me about that, about the TO experience?
Absolutely. At TO, we managed the fleet for 2-3 years, and
just I'm sorry, for people who don't know about the TO experience, I'm talking about the taxi cab company, which had all electric cars, and many of them were Nissan Leafs.
Yeah, there was a fleet of around 130 vehicles, some Tesla, some Leafs, some Kia products, some Souls. And all of them, including the Leafs, were fast charged every day, many times per day, driven day in, day out, honestly, by maniacs. And even with that...
Cab drivers.
I didn't say it. Even with that very, very harsh treatment, it's a very small minority of the fleet that needed a battery replacement within the 160,000 kilometers of the warranty, even by only fast charging all the time.
Okay. So should people stop wondering or start charging up to 100% all the time when they go to a fast charger? Is that what you're saying?
Well, at some point, it's not a technical reason. It's more of an economical reason. As you charge,
And you're cheap, I know.
I am notoriously cheap. You're right, Dan. Yeah, that's why we like each other, I guess. At some point, your charge rate is so slow, and you're still paying by the minute the exact same amount. 1 minute of great charging or 1 minute slow charging at the end, you're still paying the same amount. So you're not getting a lot of electricity for your money at some point.
Yeah, because one thing that's very important is that when you're in Quebec and you charge on a level 2 charger at home, you pay per kilowatt hour. But when you're charging on a fast charger, you're paying by time, by the hour. So there's a big difference there, and people should not confuse the two.
Exactly. It's a flat rate by the minute, no matter how much or how little you're actually pulling from that charging station.
Okay. So why do we say 80%?
I guess it's an old...
Not only, apart from the fact that there's a financial reason, there's another reason.
The last reason, it's because at some spots there are not enough fast chargers. At some times of the year there's a queue, beginning of vacation or long weekends. At some point you're using that infrastructure, you're charging very slowly because you're way above 80%. People are queuing up and they need to charge or they want to charge, and you're using that infrastructure at a very, very low rate. You're basically using it and monopolizing it so people don't have access to it.
But, because there's a but, you tell me about the fact that some people might need to charge up to 90 or 95%.
Yeah, exactly. It's we're impatient people. When we're in a queue, we're waiting, we're impatient. You read it on forums. Oh, he was charging up to 95%. He doesn't know what he's doing, blah, blah, blah. Well, sometimes these people need to fully charge. They need to cross a huge park. They need to go to Val d'Or or a remote area. They'll need every little drop of electricity they can get. Be courteous to people. Talk to them. Be friendly. If you notice that they have no clue of what they're doing, explain. They're stuck there anyways. They'll be stuck listening to you. And if they know what they're doing, well, obviously it's because they need that electricity.
Well, we hope so. Because, I mean, I saw a couple there that stopped at a fast charger, and they were there for 5 hours. And at one point, I mean, I was really mad, but my girlfriend told me, calm down and go and see if they know what's happening. And I had to explain to them, because nobody explained to them that you don't stop and plug at a fast charger for 5 hours. I mean, no car can take 5 hours of fast charging. So you're right. There's some education to do, and especially if you have a car with a smaller battery, you might need to charge up to 90 and 95%.
Absolutely. And just to explain to people that as long as they're plugged in, they're paying, even if it's not charging anymore, usually they get it pretty fast.
Yeah. It's true. Let's talk about the Chevy Spark, because there's some particularity with the Chevy Spark, because when you're talking about the Bolt, I mean, the speed of the charging on the Chevy Bolt, it starts to slow down at about 55 or 60%, and then it slows even more at around 80%. But when you have a Chevy Spark, it's a different story.
Yeah, well, it comes down to the chemistry of the battery. But regardless of the chemistry, the smaller the battery, usually the more powerful the cells they had to put in. It's a system called the C rate. It needs a high C rate cells. So the Chevy Spark, specifically, the first years they used a different chemistry.
It was a lithium iron phosphate battery.
Absolutely. Those batteries are extremely safe. They can tolerate a lot of abuse, and they don't age. Well, they age very slowly. So GM basically opened the tap and let's go. Let's burst power in that battery, and they last and last and last. Even when they switched over to a more common chemistry, to the NMC chemistry, it was still a very powerful cell that they used. So it allowed fast charging nearly up to 100%. So it's not an urban legend. The Spark has a very powerful battery. It can absorb a lot of power for a long time.
Okay. Now let's talk about the fact that now we have 50 kilowatt charger most of the time. That's what we see on the road. Okay, but next year we're gonna have 100 kilowatt, 150 kilowatt, and even more powerful chargers. So does that say that if a car takes an hour to charge on a 50 kilowatt charger, is it going to take half an hour on a 100 kilowatt charger?
Sadly, no. It's not that simple. The only time that you will gain is when the charger, your 50 kilowatt charger, is outputting its maximum current. Whenever on the display you see 125 amps, then you would go faster if the charger would allow it, would have the capability. And this is not that often. Look at be a bit nerdy and look at the screen of the charger while you're fast charging. Anyways, you're stuck there, so might as well look at it. Only when it says 125 amps is a time where you would gain speed if the charger was larger. That's with current cars. As cars evolve, they have larger batteries, they have better cooling, they have better cells. They will be a lot faster. The newer products, the Porsche Taycan shows it pretty obviously, even some Teslas. But for the cars that are currently on the road, sadly, it will not be much faster on a larger charger.
Let's talk about Tesla, because Tesla has a different system and they charge quite a bit faster. Do you have anything to say about the Tesla system and the superchargers? Now we're up to 250 kilowatts.
Yeah, I have yet to see a Tesla car charge at that speed, but the infrastructure is there. The chargers are there. If you look at an older Model S, it's going to charge above 50 kilowatts. Yes, it's going to reach 100 something kilowatts, but for a very brief period of time. Then it will start going down. And Tesla has been wise enough, when the charging rate slows, when you're lower than a certain power, they charge more. You pay more dollars to have a slower charge. What they mean by that is get out of here and leave the spot to someone else.
With my Model 3, I've been up to 150 kilowatts so far. So I expect next year I'm gonna be able to charge at 250 kilowatt, because it's gonna be the V3 version of the supercharger. So I'll tell you about that when it happens, because I'll go to the States pretty often. So we'll see about that. What else? I think that, you've just busted quite a few myths tonight. But the fact that we charge up to 100%, because some people say you should never charge up to 100%. And I've read Elon Musk say that, you should not charge up to 100%, even if it's not on a fast charger, but on a slower charger, because then what happens is that you lose some energy, because when comes time to stop or to slow down, the energy that you should be getting back from the braking, from the regeneration, it cannot go in the battery. So what do you say about that?
Well, he's right in the sense that you won't have any regen with a full battery. And being cheap, I want all the free kilowatt hours I can get. So I kind of agree with him. But the biggest deal to me is not the energy that you're paying for nothing, is more the change in the brake feel. Your first couple of stops will be hairy. You will jump hard on that brake pedal because you're only using your mechanical brakes on your car. So
I would say that differently. I would say that you will have to brake. You will have to step on your brake pedal instead of doing one pedal driving. And I've not only seen that with Tesla, but with Chevy Bolts and other cars, that when it's fully charged, for the first few kilometers there, it's not the same braking feel at all.
Absolutely. I think you see it more in a Tesla because the regen is even more powerful and the car is extremely heavy. You feel it maybe a bit more, but you're right. A full battery does not behave the same way as a slightly discharged battery. So as a general recommendation, Elon is a bit a crazy guy, but on that one, he's right.
Well, thanks a lot, Fred. And this is all there was to know. Everything you wanted to know about batteries and fast charging. This was Daniel Breton for Montreal Auto Prix Hybrid and Electric Division. See you next week.